where you're going when you get back from it. And here what you do is you just define a function to say, okay, well, when you come back, go and do this function, handle response. And somewhere I'll define that handle response to what it sort of deals with it. So that just tells that request object where to go back to. And the result, the data is actually inside this request block, you'll find when it comes back. There isn't a strict response object. The bit about sending it is setting up here with inside the request, you're saying, where am I going to go? Well, I want to do a get type one, or post, for this. Where's the thing on the server? What's the server side address? In this case, I'm going to invoke on the server message data.html. I'm not invoking an actual servlet just yet. And the final thing here, true, decides whether or not it's asynchronous. Now, whether it's asynchronous or not, if it's asynchronous, it means that you can just carry on now. So it'll do that request, and your server might take 10 minutes to respond. It might take 10 seconds, it may take 10 milliseconds. But it doesn't sort of matter, because basically, this will just sort of carry on. It doesn't wait for the response. Like you get with opening up a web page, you've got to wait for it all to come back and assemble. So when we had in that kayak search one, and it went off and was getting all that data, the data was flowing back in, but the actual main page was still there, and it was building it up as these things came through. It was still sort of doing its handle response for it. If you set it to false, then that just means pause while you get it, and your browser will just hold until that data comes back. You might want false if it's crucial before you proceed that you get this bit of information from the browser. For example, a credit card validation. You might also say, don't let the credit card, or don't let the buying process proceed until you've got this credit card response. And then you get this bit where you fill in your password or something like that for your bank, and it sort of finishes off. So there are cases where you want that to be false. The send then says, okay, go off and do it. With the null part here, that's you can put in some post data, create a separate file of data to send, and we'll look at that later on. If it's get data, it will be included in this web address to send across. So I know we've done sort of quite a bit on that, but you just need to sort of have a look at what's happening when you sort of send a request. Now here I said when you come back, invoke handle response. Now my handle response function, this is the function that gets called when the data comes back. And all it's actually going to do in this case is just an alert box in JavaScript. An alert box just pops on screen. We're not doing the bit about inserting it somewhere in the page, we will do. This just says, out of the request that you've got, just grab the response text. Now the response text part of your request is whatever that user sent you. Whatever's inside here, inside that response, that's your response text that you pick up. And all this bit's doing is just, boom, flashing it up on the screen. Whatever they sent you, display it. We'll do something better with it later on. And the bit about saying, make sure you've actually finished getting the data in, but don't handle the response until you've actually got something to work with. So it's not sort of too bad with it. There's a little bit of an aside here on what's meant by anonymous functions and things like this. Something that Java doesn't allow you to do. C does, but Java doesn't allow you to pass the name of a function as a parameter. When you pass a parameter in Java, you pass an int or some sort of object or something like that. What JavaScript and C does via a function pointer is allow you to say, look, this do something with response is the name of a method. That's the name of a method somewhere. It's not a variable, it's not an object, it's a method name. Now that isn't allowed in Java, do it? You can sort of get around it with virtual functions and with polymorphism and things like that, but it's not sort of permitted. And C uses a more explicit function pointer to sort of do it. Also, JavaScript allows you an anonymous function and just says, on ready state change, just do this bit of code. And it might be a bit of inline code, and you don't even give it a name. So you don't need to call it do something with response for it. You can just sort of define something that says, I've got a function here, here's what the code is. And when you come back, just do this code, will you? The name of it doesn't matter, you want to give a name to it, you can, sort of thing, but it's just sort of in line. It's called an anonymous class. Java has that sort of idea, and C and C++ don't. And it's just one of these other things about what certain programming languages have and others don't. If you're doing the comparative programming languages module, is it called that, something like that? Something to do with software programming, something that Darren used to do, Darren Dancer. Somebody's nodding there. So, is that what it's called? Is it comparative programming? Oh, right. There is a course running this term, I think, where they look at about 8 or 9 different programming languages and compare what approaches they've sort of got, looking at your completely different styles. That's just an aside, really, and some examples. I'm not going to sort of go over those. So the assemble bits of JavaScript that you need, something to get your request object, something to send that request off, and your response handler. That's might all be contained within one sort of piece of JavaScript code. In this case, when you get into the labs, you'll see show message.js just holding these things in for it. Now we just need to invoke some of these for it. The HTML has to be XHTML, HTML5 in other words, for it. Because you're wanting to address a particular locations in your code. Remember with an XML document when we did that parsing, we had this ability to say, find this tag by ID, and then extract its value out. What we're wanting to do in the web page is to say, well, just find this tag, find this ID somewhere in the web page, and push this data in there. So you need to sort of have this ability to name specific regions, but also it's like sort of XML in that it has to be well formed. So the old HTML4, a bit sort of loosey-goosey in its approach. It's a bit sort of, well, yeah, anything will do. HTML5, a lot more sort of specific. It's based on sort of XML. What it means is that you often designate control to instigate things or to have them as a target. Now the key things that we're having, you put in a doctype command inside your top just to make sure that it's valid XHTML. That just involves putting that, what looks like a comment in there. You put your script inside script tags. And generally what you have a script tag with a reference to where that script file is, that previous page. So say, well, just go off and get this script. And there might be several scripts. We've just got one in this case. It may be that you're bringing in, say, something from a third party. You're bringing in a library of scripts from, say, Google to handle maps, or another sort of third party to do some sort of handling for it. They'll supply you with some JavaScript functions and documentation how to use them. We'll see that just in a second. And how to sort of designate control to initiate a request. So you might have a button input type with a particular label on, and then the on-click part to the HTML, you can indicate, look, just do this main function. And that will trigger off, when they click it, that triggers off a bit of JavaScript identified by the main function. One or two issues with Internet Explorer. I think they probably addressed these by now, but they were just in earlier versions. Internet Explorer, for example, didn't like the idea of closing a tag with / angle at the end. It forced you to have the other sort of way around to it. One or two little quirks about it, but as I say, I think they've probably been ironed out by now. but you might want to be aware just to avoid doing that sort of approach in case your user is using an earlier version. So what it means in terms of your HTML code, if you first load up an HTML page to show your user, we've got this part in our header to include our JavaScript, show message.js, with the thing with those 3 things in, and then saying, okay, when they click this button, then run the send request. Now those functions, send request, they're in there. So on click, we're invoking send request, which gets a request object, requests the data from the user as a get, and then when it comes back, handles the response by doing an alert box. So that's a bit to link it in to your actual sort of code. Basically just coming up with a button there. Click this, I'll go off and do it for it. So when you run it, my message data at the other side is just a simple bit of HTML, just some random message. So when I invoke that, I'll get back that HTML, so that when I click on show message, I pop up an alert box with whatever the content was that came back. So that content wasn't HTML, it was literally a bit of text. You know, it's not sort of wrapped up in tags.